All right, real-time working group, 16th of September 2020. Nearly there. So one announcement, and I think I need somebody else to double check this because I can't be 100% sure, but just through looking through the merge requests, I'm noticing that we seem to be serving WebSocket traffic through nodes in Kubernetes on production and Canary. It's just that we don't have very much WebSocket traffic. The only feature that runs through that is the web terminal. So I think, like, yeah, I mean, as far as I can see, the only thing we would have to do now would be the Helm chart updates to allow action cable to be run in-app, or allow that environment variable to be set. And then we could just, yeah, we would update this file to actually set that to default, unless it's already defaulted to on, we would set it to on. And I think that might be all we have to do, but I'm not sure. But anyway, anyone who'd like to can check that out and check my math and see if it's correct. But I think that's what's going on. We have no gate today. Okay, cool. So it's the first item as well. So yeah, I thought we should discuss the decision to go with only supporting embedded action cable. Has a lot of pros. Do we want to discuss the cons? We want to discuss the risks of going with that, and where we should document the rationale behind the decision.
I think it's also just like what we do with like the Kubernetes WebSocket thing that we're doing right now with the web terminal, right? It runs our whole Rails app. It just, only serves these certain requests because it's only routed these certain requests, right? So it's basically the work would be the same with this like a WebSocket thing that they're working on right now, I think.
Yeah. So the conversation between Matthias and Gabe in the Slack channel talked a bit about, like, how you can't, like, by default, you can't, like, sort of treat WebSocket traffic as independent to web traffic if it's only in embedded mode. But obviously we will be doing that because we do that at the HA proxy level anyway. So I think that probably effectively mitigates the main downside from that.
I think the question that's going to come, though, is, like, was there any benefit to running standalone and only serving? Like, did we really save any memory or CPU from only supporting standalone? Could we remove, like, rack middleware, for example, and when we were doing that, like?
I think those things were still, like, loaded in memory. I mean, on the connection side, it goes through less stuff, so you'd probably save, like, microseconds, maybe, like, not going through the router and all that. But
yeah, that was the main thing I noticed, is that it goes through the it draws Rails routes if you run the standalone server, which are not used if it's in standalone mode, because it will be a different server responding to clients. So there's some, like, unnecessary, like, code paths that will execute, but I don't think we have any hard numbers behind, like, what it means in terms of extra cost. It's also, this is like a general GitLab issue, right? It's not even specific to action cable. I mean, the similar arguments can be made for Sidekick. We also load a bunch of stuff when booting a Sidekick node that is never used in Sidekick. It's just kind of like like one of the downsides of having a monolithic app. And it kind of surfaces the problem in different, different ways, maybe depending on what the type of server is that you run. But, like, generally speaking, it's not a new problem. That's what I'm saying, that we would run into with that.
Do you think that for .com we'll actually do that, though, or will we route traffic to a separate set of pods, or will we simply run it all from web service and spread it evenly?
I thought my understanding was that we kind of start simple and see, like, how it even performs, like, in embedded mode, because honestly we don't know, right? I mean, because we can speculate all day that that this is not going to scale. It also depends a little bit on how widely we roll out functionality based on that actually relies on WebSockets, right? Because right now it's really just one feature, and I don't think we had any really good insight into what we can expect in terms of how many clients we will have connected at any given point in time. So we will have metrics around this. Probably can also still be improved, but I would like start simple, like roll it out slowly, see what happens, look at the metrics that we already collect, and then really just go from there. If we then find that this demands a traffic split, like we mentioned earlier, and we want to run this on dedicated nodes, we can still do that, right?
Yeah, for .com, I think we're definitely going to go with dedicated nodes, which are split based on routing, because that's why we're blocked on Kubernetes, because the main point was to like split this off to Kubernetes nodes, and then our regular traffic goes to our regular VMs that we have now.
I'm just thinking, actually, from a first iteration, we're definitely going to run separate nodes because they're the only nodes. They're the only web service nodes we're going to be running. The rest of HTTPS requests are going to be run through regular web service nodes, and only WebSockets are going to be routed through the Kubernetes ingress.
Okay, I see. Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So are we still
sorry.
planning to keep standalone mode at all then? Because then it's probably pointless to keep for now, right?
Yeah, that's the part of the discussion. Like, yeah, should we like abandon, just remove it?
I mean, I don't see the point in maintaining it personally if we're going to be doing this anyway, where there are minimal savings from actually maintaining a separate standalone thing, and then anyway we can just scale up a dedicated set of web service nodes that do the exact same thing. So
yeah, I think we should just drop it, and I don't think there are any like objections.
Heinrich, I had a question for you. Because in both modes, we still run a full Puma instance, right? It might be configured differently, but do we also in both cases, it would still run Puma worker pools as well, regardless of whether you run it in standalone or embedded, right? Is there any way to get around that? Because that also seems like, it seems like a point of confusion as well, because we have these two different pool settings now that you can tweak independently. And but also like from a resource utilization perspective, because if I run if I run a dedicated node that only serves action cable traffic, the only case in which I really need an ordinary Puma worker to handle traffic is to upgrade a connection, correct?
Yeah, so the connection still goes through a worker, right, for the the upgrade, and it passes the connection to the thread, the other thread pool. So yeah, I asked like Camille about it, like should we default this Puma pool number to 1 when it's a standalone server? Like we don't need it, but he said like it's cheap enough that you just default to whatever it is right now. But yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Gabe, you brought up a couple of things on the thread. Are you happy to go with only supporting embedded mode?
I'm reading it right now. If I gathered correctly, the only problem I see is, and this is more like for SaaS, would be the losing the ability to independently scale action cable traffic. And I think, did I hear earlier that's mitigated because everything gets routed through HA proxy anyway, so it's like a moot point. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's like we lose that point, that feature at the at this action cable level, but then we can do the same thing at a different level. So
okay, yeah. So as long as we have that ability to respond to like scaling needs for action cable differently than normal web traffic at some point in time, so that we don't like run into some weird thing where action cable is like cannibalizing all of our web traffic and screwing it over. As long as we can solve for that, I don't care. Put it that way.
And that really shouldn't happen when we launch, because it'll be served by an entirely different set of infrastructure. Like the WebSocket traffic will go through the Kubernetes deployment, and all of their web service traffic will be isolated in another, I don't know what I think it's Google Cloud or whatever, but like regular nodes. So yeah, but we save a lot, right? So we save like not having to maintain a separate container, not having to maintain a separate Helm chart for that container, and then a separate deployment for that that uses that Helm chart. It's also easier to collect all the usage data because it's really hard to collect standalone usage data, whereas we can simply detect the setting in embedded mode, whether it's switched on or not, and report on that. So it's going to save us a lot, I think.
I was even thinking like maybe just default the action cable embedded mode to be true, like, and there wouldn't be any Helm work needed, right? We just deploy like web nodes and just feature flag the client part which connects to the server. Too risky, maybe, I don't know.
Evil genius. But then what happens when they deploy the rest of the web service nodes in Kubernetes? They'll all have action cable enabled?
Yeah, they would, but no WebSocket connections would connect there, right? So it's very little overhead, I guess. I mean,
Yeah, all I'll say is y'all, the engineers, you are the DRIs for implementation. This is an implementation DTL, and I trust whatever you decide. And if the decision we make now isn't the ideal one, it's not like we can't go back and do the other. So whatever y'all want to do.
Okay, as the next step, I'm actually going to let Maren know on the other issue. So we have two issues for Helm charts. One is for standalone and one's for embedded. I'm going to let Maren know on the one for standalone and just let him know that I'm going to close that out and that we don't intend to use it. And then maybe we can mention with him, if he sees, ask him if he sees any problem with enabling it by default, action cable. So that those nodes just, we can skip the Helm work altogether. Like, it's a nice idea. I don't know if it introduces any risk though. Cool. All right. I have the next item as well. So I just wanted to check up on the progress of tracking this in usage ping. So Matthias, thanks for exporting the data through Prometheus. What are the next steps? Is it just a case like, can we schedule this usage ping issue and get it worked on in 13.5?
Yeah, it should be unblocked. Yeah, I mean, in the beginning, I was kind of hoping to just do it all, but our team is super busy with the image scaling stuff, and we are running into some interesting complexities there as well. Yeah, I don't want to derail this. So yeah, essentially, also like I had in a one-on-one with Craig, he also mentioned again that we're trying to also encourage teams that own a particular feature area of GitLab to actually work on these usage ping related things so that we don't concentrate the knowledge about how to do that in too few teams or individuals. So that's why he also encouraged me to say, let's let the team work on it that is actually, it's going to be looking at this data at the end of the day. And I think it makes a lot of sense. But I'm like happy to help out with this, like if there's questions, but it should be unblocked. Like if we go down the route of that we initially had in mind, which was to just query Prometheus for the existence of these action cable metrics that we now should have, and then use that to transform it into a usage ping payload.
Cool, thanks.
So my only comment is there. Thanks for the go learn how to fish, mentality. So that's great, and we're happy to do it. But if it's any consolation, we're already adding like, what is this, 15 to 20 different usage ping counters for other things in our stage. So it's not like,
okay, that's fair enough. I did not even know that. I'm just like relaying what
I know, but it's just great. It's good to like basically all of the teams are responsible, or all the groups are responsible for their own usage ping things. And this is where at the end of the day, I don't mind for like the project management group in the plan stage as a whole is like pushing action cable forward, but I don't want us to be in a situation where we are the sole arbiters or the group that's responsible for like it at scale, because that's what's happened with GraphQL, where basically everyone's using GraphQL now and all of the maintenance work falls on our team, right? And like everyone's using labels now, or a lot of people are, and all the maintenance work falls on our team. and we have 4 backend engineers, and it's not
Got it, yeah.
sustainable. So I just want to make sure that like as we scale this out, it's not about ownership is in my mind, but it's almost like we have to band together to figure out how to support this, especially as other groups are going to start consuming Action Cable resources. So
no, that's fair enough. Like, and look, like I'm not trying to push back on. I'm happy to work on this. That's what I'm saying. I have no problem with that at all. It's just that yeah, that I don't want to like subvert any decisions or like cause confusion when I talk to Craig about this. And yeah, our last agreement was like we're not going to work on it, but I can bring it up again. I'm happy to, and we can. It's just not going to happen for 13.5 because we're really like all hands on deck now with the image scaling stuff, and it just has priority in our team right now.
Yeah. No. It's I don't mind. Like I said, we're already working on a bunch of user streaming stuff. So what's one more thing on the giant table of things, right?
And again, like if you do pick it up before, like I can also try to get to it as soon as I can. If you happen to pick it up before, feel free to like pull me in as well. Just ping me on the issue. If there's any questions for how to get it done. There is some like existing there's some existing code that should look fairly similar to what we're trying to do here. So it's not like we do have to do anything. We don't have to reinvent anything from scratch, hopefully. But yeah, let's see when we get there.
Cool. What is the just so I'm looking at this, the usage ping will be if it's enabled, and we can like I guess get rid of the checking whether it's in standalone or embedded mode.
Yeah, that was when we wrote the issue, we still had or when we worked on the issue to actually emit metrics into Prometheus, that was still a thing, right? Being in standalone or embedded mode. So I just attached it as a label for now to that metric. So it's kind of like a dimension in how these metrics are published. So whether we then report it back into usage ping or not, it's kind of up to us. It doesn't really add any additional complexity because it will come back as part of the same query. Like if you go to Prometheus and ask for these metrics, there's no extra work required.
I'm adding the enabled check and then the pool size to the bottom of our table that we're already tracking, and I'll cross-link to this issue.
Yeah, so the biggest question there was actually where would that go inside the usage ping? Because the usage ping, it's already a little bit messy. I mean, you probably know yourself, like if you have worked on it, because it is in parts it is structured by stage or like feature area. But not every metric that we submit really fits that model. We felt that pain a little bit when we were working on the self-managed topology metrics that we now submit with usage ping to get a better idea of like how self-managed customers deploy GitLab, because it also didn't really fit any of the existing categories. And then a question came up, how is that actually stored and processed as part of this version app that consumes the usage ping? And we actually ended up just storing it as a JSON dump and just like basically handing it off to that downstream pipeline that then ingests this JSON into Snowflake, I think. Yeah, so yeah, one open question was there, how do we do that with Action Cable? Because it's kind of like a technical concern. It's not so much a feature, whether you have to turn it on or not, because it will power many features. So that's kind of an open question, like just like metric naming and where should we put that? And I think there's also an owner that you put down in the metric descriptions, if that's still a thing. So these are like smaller things to think about, but yeah.
Yeah, I think. Sorry, go ahead, Heinrich.
Yeah, so I think I know we do like Puma thread pool size or something in usage ping. I think it just goes with that. And I think the enabled flag for Action Cable is also a temporary thing with usage ping because, in the future, it will be like enabled for everyone and we don't need to track this in usage ping. So.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually.
My question was, what do we do? So with all the usage ping data, right, you added something you want to track because you want to answer some question. And I would ask, what question do we want to answer by tracking the information? And who will make a decision based on what we learned from the information that we collect? Can we answer that?
Well, yeah, I don't even think it's going to be a feature team, right? Because what we track right now are really like very technical, like operational metrics, like how is the thread pool scaled? Do we see like tasks backlogging in that thread pool? What was the largest queue size that we've seen and things like that. So it's really like fine tuning your system. So I would say maybe a GitLab administrator or like, an infrastructure team. I think those would be the typical consumers of this data so far, outside of the enable this thing that we already said we're going to get rid of anyway at some point. Yeah, and there is a existing structure called GitLab components, I think, which has some of these like more like infrastructure component specific metrics. So maybe we can just add it there. The only odd thing there was, but that's an implementation detail, is that this is handled like parsed out explicitly in the version app. But I did go back to the telemetry team and they said it's probably okay to not add it there because now we also store the raw payload that we send to the version app, and we can probably just like rely on that being propagated downstream and run queries and create dashboards just based on queries that go straight to that do a JSON path query that goes straight to that raw data basically that we were sending. So that's good enough. And we've done that with the topology stuff, by the way, as well. And it worked fairly well for us. So if that's good enough, and I'm not really sure because I'm not going to be the person probably looking at it very much, but like that's good enough, then there's probably no extra work on the version app to be done.
I'm not going to look at it either. So sure. I might look at like if it's enabled or not to see if we're getting adoption of using action cable or if somebody's turning it off in general, but the pool size and stuff like that is not my concern. So if we leave it in the JSON basically blob and somebody's not happy with that and they want to see it somewhere else, they can do the work. That's sort of how I feel about it. So
if we default it to on, then it might be interesting to see how many people actually switch it off.
I would we have like the basic, isn't it in our values or somewhere in our handbook that we default to on for everything in most cases?
Love it.
Yeah, also at some point this is going to be like, what happens if you turn Sidekick off? Like GitLab just doesn't work, right? Like, not right now, but like at some point in the future, that will be what turning this off means. And you can turn Sidekick off because like you might want to run Sidekick somewhere else, but it's not really very useful for us to know in usage ping where the Sidekick's on or off. So I think, just put it in the raw payload. See if anybody actually wants any more.
That's a really interesting point because didn't we also say that in the long run we want to get rid of the kind of the long polling approach because we're still polling for the actual data, right? Because we just send a signal right now into the UI that hey, something has changed, but you still have to go back and make a request to GraphQL. So I think, and that happens in a separate increment, basically, right? So once that work is finished, it actually becomes an essential feature. Otherwise, you're not going to get any updates at all as you look at the page without reloading, do a full page reload, right?
Well, yeah, you would have to do full page reload, but I think we have to look at the installations that are on memory limited, like a Raspberry Pi or some other small like type device where you might not want that, right? You might not want to make that trade-off. And so basically what we would do is just fall back to you would get no real-time updates, period, anywhere. And you would have to refresh the page. And I think that's a fine experience. It's sort of how it is today with the exception of a few things, but
it wouldn't exactly be like it is today, right? Because right now we poll for updates. So
we don't
it would
poll.
actually be worse, the user experience.
We don't poll right now on the sidebar.
On the side, okay.
Not on the sidebar.
Oh, it's just for the sidebar,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, no, there are other places where we do polling. Like we either do it with, so we do I think we do long polling for something to do with CI pipelines at some point, and we do sort of e-tag caching for issue descriptions and comments and stuff like that. So yeah, eventually that would probably use WebSocket, Action Cable as well, right?
Wouldn't we always want to
stuff.
Wouldn't we always want to have some sort of fallback if it's disabled though? Like what happens if you lose your socket connection randomly? Is it just going to break and everything stops working? That's what happens at Trello, but
I'm not convinced that this is a problem even on like low memory devices, because action cable itself, especially if you embed it in the sense that it is actually running on the same node that also serves ordinary web traffic, just by virtue of adding action cable, that is not a lot of extra memory use. So I would, to be honest, like in the testing I did, I actually saw, at least for this one specific feature, a reduction in memory use, because when action cable sends signals the UI to poll for the update, this actually led to a more efficient memory profile. Maybe because the application had to like load fewer classes into memory or something like that. And maybe honestly, like if you leave it run for a while, this will deteriorate this effect as well. But I don't think it's like less efficient to do it that way. I think like in the long run, we should probably migrate all these features over to just use WebSockets in whichever shape or form. I think it would be odd to say that like for some parts of the page we long poll and for other parts we use WebSocket.
Especially since like even those small instances are like currently being DDoSed by everyone who has an open browser and a few open tabs, you know, like with these constant long polling requests. So I mean, I haven't seen any feedback from that at all as to what that kind of traffic is like, but I would imagine, you know, it's quite high, especially for like .com. I'd imagine it's n times the number of online users, you know, the average number of tabs. So we're nearly at time, like, so we can skip to Gabe if you want to verbalize your comments at the bottom.
Sure. I know the front end aspect of things has been slow in the working group, and now it's like picking up full speed. So Natalia, I just wanted to ask if you would be able to work on that. I think you said you wanted to collaborate, but when you wanted to, I guess, prioritize that in your schedule in the coming weeks, and if you have any questions about it or want to collaborate at all.
Yeah, I already dropped a command there willing to collaborate. I think it really depends on when my manager is back from the OO, because currently I'm managing knowledge. So I'm kind of busy right now with both individual contributor and management stuff. I really hope that 13.5 will be more or less good. Again, depends on direction items. So hopefully I will be able to start some work on 13.5 and continue on 13.6. But it also depends on Scott and Simon as well, and their will to collaborate. I saw Scott commented there, but Simon didn't. So I'm not sure what is his ideas regarding this collaboration.
Okay, I'll follow up with Simon. And I know in 13.5, one of the things that we're working on at 13.5 and 6 in our group is refactoring pretty much all of the components on the issue view and to use GitLab UI. And so it's also a good opportunity to think about refactoring it to support real-time stuff as well. So I'll connect with Simon and see if he can add his 2 cents to the issue.
Okay, thank you.
My pleasure.
Okay, cool. We're at time. Thanks everyone for showing up. I'll do an update to the working group page with the outcomes from today and drop the MR into the channel on Slack so you can all review it. Cool. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye-bye.